Okay, we are back. I got some more questions for you, Brian.
Shoot.
ACP, we have been pursuing a certification for some time now. And
Right.
I was wondering if you can describe what kind of certification have we been pursuing?
Sure. Yeah. So years ago, ACP was founded with the goal of establishing the nation's first non-proprietary certification for the building automation systems industry. And that's not an easy thing to do, because if it was an easy thing to do, it would have been done a long time ago. In conversations with other organizations who have attempted to do this, they've run into all kinds of problems because the building automation systems industry is so disparate and divided as to the pathway that you might choose. So you might wind up being a systems integrator, for instance, or a programmer, or a field technician, or salesman, or whatever. So it's a difficult challenge to put a stake in the sand and say, this is the set of knowledge, skills, and abilities that somebody needs to be able to be successful in this industry, in which you have so many, really an ecosystem of career pathways, right? So I've spent almost 30 years in the building automation industries, as I've had just about every role you can imagine, from a technician to an engineering supervisor to a systems integrator to a programmer, graphical user interface creator, you name it. And then having my own organization where you have to learn all the skills. So when I sold that company and I understood the need for programs in the Atlanta area anyways, I had a pretty good sense of all the different pathways somebody could pursue in automation. And we were able to establish a program, the nation's first program in awarding an associate's degree in building automation. And in that process, we were able to see where most of the students coming out of that program would gain first employment. And the area where most of them would gain first employment, almost 70% of the students, would be in the role of a field technician. Okay. So we took that as the benchmark, the highest and greatest need for a certification, because if we could cover that particular career pathway for individuals coming out of technical school or an apprenticeship, et cetera, then we could take the first step in setting that line of, hey, these are the skills needed to be a BAS field technician. And employers could understand, what it was or what it is that they're getting as far as skills. And then educational institutions could also understand the level at which they need to train to be able to prepare their students to sit for that certification in the BAS technician role. So ACP's, to summarize, ACP's certification is focused on building automation systems technicians. There are many skills required to be a building automation systems technician. And if someone were to prepare for that, or want to understand what it takes to prepare for that role, you could visit the ACP website, or you could, probably both, visit the ACP website, become a member, or just, view our guidelines, and then enroll in either a continuing education or a full degree program at one of our partner institutions, of which now what started with one institution in Atlanta are now over 100 institutions around the United States that are delivering some form or fashion of building automation systems education. ACP is helping them align their curriculum, which many already are aligned, some others are aligning now, to the guidelines of the ACP certification and the requirements needed of students to be able to sit for and hopefully pass that certification. I know that was a long answer. I hope that addressed your initial question.
Yes, it addressed my second one as well, which I was ready to jump in and say, how can we prepare for this? And it's great, they'll go to our website, and I'm and the rest of the information will be there, the step-by-step process. So I guess what I'm wondering next is how can the BAS field technicians get training that may be needed for this ACP certification?
Yeah, so let's continue with that a little bit. The first step in establishing, um, I guess, flow of new talent into an industry like that really needs it, like building automation, is to establish programs of study or places where individuals in virtually any major urban center in the United States can go and get the training. Okay. There are online providers of training. Um, I don't want to disparage anybody's approach to this because I think there's a place for all of it. There are for-profit companies which are providing education for building automation training. Um, they have a set of customers, and I think that's great. Our industry needs it. But for young people in particular, if we're going to address the shortfalls that this industry has in technicians, it can't be just a matter of upskilling in-field talent, which we already have in the industry and we're short of. It has to be an issue of bringing in new blood, new faces, and a lot of times those individuals don't have the resources to pay for private training or boot camp style training from for-profit institutions. So their only option is to go to a community or technical college or a university, all of which now have iterations of building automation systems training. And the reason for that is that provides the opportunity for financial aid up, for students who, or they may need to take a certain amount of student loans. But typically they can get the training that they need in 1 to 2 years at a community or technical college and come out hopefully with little to no debt, and get the training that they need and the support that they need from that institution. Now, ACP and the BEST Center, of which I've also been a co-principal investigator since its inception in 2012, provide resources to students for training, some guidance to colleges for aligning their curriculum. ACP even provides scholarship for students, as you're well aware, who are pursuing building automation systems education with the sponsorship of major companies and organizations. For instance, the Siemens Foundation is a big sponsor of that initiative. And so all of these resources are freely available to students. So we try to encourage students to go to community or technical college, choose a pathway. Maybe it's a condensed version like a workforce continuing education condensed program where they can go in and get the training in 6 months and get out and get to work. Or maybe it's a full degree program that takes a longer period of time and matches the technical skills with the collegiate English and collegiate math, et cetera, so they come out with a transferable associate's degree that they can later build upon for higher level degrees. Whatever it is, I think we've created, or whatever the pathway is that makes most sense for that student, I think we've created very attractive and affordable ways for those individuals to get the training that they need in an institution which is probably, we've got the United States pretty well covered now, probably somewhat close to where they live, and for an affordable price. And so we try to route them to our community and technical and university partners to get that training in particular. But we would also let them know that as they proceed in their careers, there are a lot of other organizations which provide free resources who we've worked with, like the BACnet International, for instance, provides a lot of free training resources for students. The BEST Center website provides a lot of resources for students. There are other private organizations that provide industry training. Locally in Atlanta, Stromquist is a big, great partner of ours, and they provide a great amount of training. Kelly Corporation provides a lot of technical bulletins and brochures and has been very supportive as the nation's largest wholesaler in building automation for training for students. So there are a lot of answers to your question, which is why it's all over the place. But the central, I think, theme here is that community and technical colleges provide a very attractive means of gaining the training that somebody new or interested in the industry might need to sit for our certification.
Thank you for sharing all of those different resources. That's important for students to understand that there are free opportunities out there for them to upskill and educate themselves in this area. Would you advise a student, particularly speaking on that audience, the younger audience, would you advise a student to go to these community technical colleges and then upon receiving their building automation degree, would you advise them to immediately sit for the ACP certification once, of course, the ACP certification is out, or would you advise that they go immediately into the workforce and then sit for the certification, or does it just depend on the person?
Yeah, it would depend on a couple questions. Number one, if that institution is aligned to the guidelines which we've put out for ACP certification preparation, which many are now already, and the goal is for all of the institutions providing BAS education, or 99% of them at least, to align to the guidelines of the certificate. And I think they will. I mean, I have not come upon a college yet that's not interested in or has already aligned their curriculum to the research outcomes and to the guidance we provided, both through ACP and the BEST Center. So if that's the case and the program is aligned to ACP guidelines, I would say the individual will be ready to sit for, and certainly qualified to sit for with their resume if they have a degree in building automation or have completed a full program in building automation, to sit for and likely pass the certification. So in that case, I would say yes, immediately upon graduation, sit for the certification. Some states are going to be paying students to sit for that certification, and they will receive remuneration from, let me say this, they'll pay for the certification. They won't be paying the students directly.
Right.
They're paying for the certification.
I was like, let's
right?
clarify that.
Yeah, I misstated that. When I heard it again in my head, I'm like, wait a minute, no, it's not free money out here. But it
That's
is
a
free.
nice marketing tool, Brian.
So yeah, right. So it makes it easier. The states want to see their students certified,
Yes.
and they want to see them certified with a high value certification. And so that's the reason for that. And in fact, many states and their institutions are paid for the number of students upon beyond what they get from financial resources from their state and the federal government. They actually receive money because a student who has passed a certification demonstrates value in the program itself, which is being offered at the institution. So for instance, in the state of Florida, an institution which gets their students through the program and then that student passes a certification, for every student who gets that last year, the college or technical school would receive $1,000. So there's a strong incentive for colleges to align to certifications and get their students certified. So that's the first part of the answer. The second part is this: if, for instance, a student, and I'll say this, ACP doesn't care where students get these skills. If a student has been in the field for a number of years, or let me not even say student, a professional gets their skills. If a professional gets their skills from being in the field, that's great. If a person gets their skills by teaching themselves and can still meet the requirements of experience and or education for the scheme for ACP and can sit for the exam, ACP doesn't care. If a student gets it from a degree program, ACP doesn't care. At the end of the day, the only thing ACP and the certification is certifying is that that individual has the level of competency needed and can demonstrate that on the assessment exam, which is the certification exam. So let's say somebody who wants to become certified has never been to college and they've been in the field in the role of field technician for 3 years, for instance. They would be qualified to sit for and hopefully pass the certification. Now, do I think that it would be likely that they would have been exposed to all the bucket areas of competency that the certification is assessing? I would say no, because typically, from my experience as an employer and managing individuals, they may be highly competent in some areas, and in other areas, they may not, for whatever reason in their organization, it might not be part of their daily responsibilities. In that case, I would recommend that the individual during this ACP would recommend in the scheme review process, in looking at their resumes, you might consider getting some supplementary education in the area, let's say, of IT, or the area of integration, or perhaps the area of sequences of operation, or energy management and energy management routines or sequences, which are all part of the exam, and many other areas are in the exam. So I would say for someone who's not been through a more formal process of education, it would be more tenuous, and my response would be more, it would be on a case-by-case basis about what they've done specifically in their professional experiences as to what other training or specific education they might need to be well prepared for the certification. So I hope that addresses your question.
That does. And so then I'm curious to know what would be the value for someone to sit for the specific ACP certification. We talked about, of course, the benefits of having a certification versus a certificate, but now more specifically with ACP, and you mentioned some of them earlier, but I just want to really make sure that everyone is clear the difference between the ACP certification. What will be the value to sit for that particular certification?
Yeah, so the ACP certification is very unique, and it is the first non-proprietary, ISO-aligned certification in our industry. It's taken a very long time to develop, a lot of money. A lot of folks have had their hands in it, and it really is an industry speaking about the common skills, knowledge, skills, and abilities, and attitudes even, that are required of for somebody to be an effective building automation systems technician. Okay. So the value proposition there is that it's just what I said. It's an industry saying these are the skills and the competencies we would like you to have, and like you to be able to demonstrate on the assessment exam, the certification, that you are competent in those areas, so that we can be confident as an employer that you have this set of abilities, this knowledge and abilities, etc. So that's the real value proposition. At the end of the day, the real question is, what do employers see as valuable as it comes to certificates or certifications, right? We've talked about the value of for systems integrators, of the Tritium Niagara certification. That's industry, is valuable in the industry. Another certificate that's valuable in our industry is Network Plus by CompTIA, just because it demonstrates a level of understanding of networking and lingo, methods, definitions, etc., that are commonly needed in our industry. We think that the ACP certification is going to be much broader in nature and much more requested, especially for new people coming into the industry, but also for those in the industry who want to advance their careers, because it's going to be asked for and requested at that moment of assessing a resume or an application, and it will ultimately make that resume or application look a lot more well-rounded. And I say that because this ACP certification is built on really 15 years of work in developing both at the collegiate level curriculum, programs, disseminating best practices in those to a national audience. Now, as I mentioned, over 100 institutions around the United States. It's all supported by the National Science Foundation. We've done alignment and work with the Department of Energy. We have a basis for establishing the certification, which is very broad and deep. And then you overlay that with the involvement of virtually every building automation organization, their involvement in this through subject matter experts, through review, through guidance. And you have, at the end of the day, something that's very valuable and speaks to an entire career pathways needs as far as skill sets for individuals wanting to pursue a building automation systems technician career. That ultimately is the value of this certification to people who would consider pursuing it.
So, Brian, my last question for you. We went through some great information. We went through what the certification actually will be, the value, the benefit for the person and the employer. When are we going to announce that it is available, and where will people be able to sit for it?
That's, if you knew how many times I got that question every week, it's one which I'm going to be very excited to provide an answer to very soon. You know, this, we were planning, as you know, we were planning on this launch and release in the springtime. But we couldn't do that because the way that we've aligned the certification with our industry, with our collegiate partners, we want to provide a couple means. At the outset, we wanted to use testing centers, which are largely prevalent on college campuses, which now, as you know, are typically closed. So the stars did not align for us to already make this announcement of the release of a certification. We're monitoring the situation very closely and looking for a specific date to make that announcement to the public about where to go, about the certification itself, number one. Where do you go to get certified? And then, as we discussed earlier in our conversation, the way you prepare, what are the requirements to be able to sit for it, prepare for it, and then likely pass the certification. All this is moving with the decisions of our collegiate partners about their campuses being open, the testing centers being available. So we intend to have that announcement very soon and that date very soon, as it becomes in clear focus what the conditions will be in the fall for our partners around the country.
Well, Brian, I know you're going to be very excited and relieved to make that announcement.
Very much so.
I just want to thank you for giving us this valuable information about certifications in general, but specifically the ACCP certification that will be coming out soon. And we'll have another podcast about that, I'm sure, in the future as well. Thanks, Brian, for coming on again, and I'll talk with you soon.
Thank you, Candace. I love being on these shows with you. You're doing a great job, and you're leading the way as far as our digital presence in building automation and STEM-related careers. And I say, keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Brian. Talk with you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.